FBC Firebreak. Let's start with Firebreak. This is a brand new 3-player co-op first-person shooter. Essentially, it's like a spiritual successor to Control, but where Remedy isn't pouring endless cash into remakes. Instead, they're positioning it as a fresh, focused project. We're part of an elite FBC, Federal Bureau of Control, unit called Firebreak. Our mission: contain paranormal threats caused by an alien force known as the Resonance. The game kicks off when the oldest house, the FBC's headquarters, sealed in quarantine for 6 years after the events of Control, gets plunged back into chaos. As Bureau firefighters, we're sent on missions to suppress anomalies and restore order. Gameplay is all about fast-paced firefights, tight teamwork, and using a wild arsenal, from electric defibrillators to office chairs rigged with turrets. The atmosphere drips with that signature Remedy weirdness, eerie shifting hallways, flying sticky notes that try to strangle you, and reality breaking apart before your eyes. It feels like we're starring in a supernatural action movie. Firebreak focuses on accessibility and replayability. No long cutscenes, Remedy cut them so we jump straight into the action. Missions are varied, featuring shifting locations and scalable difficulty. Plus, there are classes, weapons, and gadgets to customize. Oh, and there's a single-player mode too, you know, in case you don't have friends. Sounds kinda wild, right? Tides of Tomorrow. And this is Tides of Tomorrow. A first-person adventure game with asynchronous multiplayer. I'll explain what that means in a second. The game drops us on the planet Eline, where after a great flood, the land drowned, and humanity survives on floating platforms. We play as a tide walker, a mysterious adventurer who wakes up in the water with no memories and infected with plastemia. That's a disease that turns living things into plastic. Our goal is to find a cure by exploring an oceanic world full of dangers, from parasites to toxic waters. The game starts with us being rescued from the sea, and we begin our journey across floating cities and villages. Gameplay blends survival, exploration, and decision-making that affects not just our story, but other players' worlds too. Sounds wild, right? That's the game's unique feature, asynchronous multiplayer. We choose whose actions, friends, streamers, or random players, we want to follow. Then their choices reshape our world. For example, if someone stole from a key non-player character, that character might hate all Tide Walkers, forcing us to sneak past them instead of having a friendly chat. The vibe is bright but dystopian. Azure waters, strange cults, platforming across floating structures, and boat combat. It feels like we're sailing on waves made by others' choices, where every action we take sends out ripples. Pretty deep, huh? RoboCop, Rogue City, Unfinished Business. New RoboCop. Well, sort of the same one, but not quite. This is a Season Pass expansion to the first-person shooter RoboCop, Rogue City. Unfinished Business brings us back to gritty Detroit, where crime is surging again after the gangs from the main game were defeated. We are RoboCop. Half man, half machine. Our mission: to take down a new threat. Elite mercenaries have seized the Omni Tower, a massive residential complex built for displaced residents of old Detroit. We head in and quickly learn every floor is a maze of traps, drones, turrets, and soldiers wielding miniguns, jetpacks, or dash katanas. Gameplay is explosive action. We blast enemies with RoboCop's iconic arsenal and follow the story. Overall, the devs keep the original game's winning formula, linear firefights mixed with light role-playing elements and investigations. We can also upgrade weapons and abilities. And our dialogue choices affect relationships with non-player characters and story details. Little Nightmares 3. Now this is Little Nightmares 3. The third entry in the series that basically created its own genre, horror puzzle platformers. The game throws us into the nightmare world of nowhere. We play as two new child heroes, Lo and Alone, trying to escape a terrifying reality only accessible through dreams. Our job: solve puzzles, hide from monsters, and survive encounters with giant creatures. This time, gameplay is built around co-op. For the first time in the series, we can play online with 2 people, each controlling one character, or solo with a companion bot, like in the second game. The atmosphere is that signature mix of cute and creepy. Dark but beautiful locations, an unsettling soundtrack, and this constant feeling of being watched. The key mechanic is teamwork. Low uses a bow to activate mechanisms or stun enemies, while Alone smashes barriers or repairs devices. It feels like being trapped in a childhood nightmare where every step could be your last. The visuals and atmosphere in these games have always been top-notch, mind-blowing, honestly. And this one? I don't think it'll be any different. Titan Quest 2. And this is Titan Quest 2. An isometric action RPG from Grimelord Games, the sequel to the 2006 cult classic. This installment drops us into a fantastical version of ancient Greece where Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, has gone off the rails. She's twisting the threads of fate and punishing anyone who opposes her. We play as a hero battling mythical beasts like titans, centaurs, and griffins, all to stop Nemesis and restore order. Gameplay is classic hack-and-slash with heavy exploration. We slash through enemies, collect loot, and uncover the world's secrets across temples, caves, and forgotten dungeons. The vibe blends Greece's vibrant landscapes with dark mythology. Every temple, forest, and city feels alive and dangerous. The standout feature? A flexible dual-class system just like the original. We combine 2 masteries, say, warrior and mage, to create completely unique builds. It feels like stepping into an epic poem. Visually, it's downright gorgeous. WUCHANG, Fallen Feathers. How about another action RPG? This one's from a Chinese studio. WUCHANG throws us into the war-torn lands of Shu, where chaos reigns thanks to conflict, corruption, and a mysterious feather plague that twists people into monsters. We play as Bai WUCHANG, a memory-lost pirate infected by that very plague. Gameplay is hardcore combat-focused. We battle mythical creatures and bosses using 25 unique weapon types, from longswords to dual blades, plus magical abilities. Visually, it's all dark beauty inspired by ancient China. Personally, it gives me challenging action RPG vibes, think overgrown temples, jungle ruins, and shattered cities steeped in Chinese myth. There's a killer mechanic too, absorbing skills from fallen foes and using cursed feathers that grant powerful abilities, but risk turning us into monsters. It looks incredibly dynamic. With 5 massive chapters and roughly 60 hours of content, it's a seriously meaty adventure. Blackfrost, The Long Dark 2. Alright folks, meet the sequel to the cult survival sandbox The Long Dark. This one strands us in the town of Harmon and its brutal surroundings, 1 year after the Aurora. That's the mysterious event that fried all electronics and plunged the world into a silent apocalypse. We play as a survivor, now fully customizable. We pick traits and skills to endure cold, hunger, and terrifying new threats. The game starts with us as lone wanderers or part of a group. Yep, there's now 4-player co-op. We fight to survive in a collapsed society. Gameplay evolves the original, deep survival simulation with crafting, hunting, and resource management. NPC communities now exist, hiding from dangers. The atmosphere is freezing but stunning, snowy forests, abandoned towns, and the dim glow of shelters. The unique twist. The Will to Live system adds psychological depth. Our morale and grit directly impact stamina. We can build shelters, trade with NPCs, and choose to help other survivors, or fight them for resources. Co-op mode lets us share the struggle with friends, a welcome addition. Hollow Knight, Silksong. Okay, so this is the brand new Hollow Knight Metroidvania, titled Silksong. This time, we're heading to the new kingdom of Farlum. We play as Hornet, that fast warrior with her needle and silk thread you might remember from the original game. The story kicks off with Hornet getting captured while traveling through a desert and waking up trapped in Farlum's shining citadel, ruled by mysterious bugs. Our goal is to escape, exploring this world full of traps and enemies, all while figuring out why Hornet was lured there in the first place. Gameplay-wise, it's classic Metroidvania with acrobatic combat. We're jumping, dodging, and attacking, using abilities like dashes and healing silk. The atmosphere mixes dark beauty with melancholy, taking us from gothic spires to fungal jungles. Everything's hand-drawn by the devs and features the captivating soundtrack by Christopher Larkin. Honestly, it looks absolutely stunning from the trailers. A unique feature is the tool and crafting system, letting you create temporary weapons like boomerangs right in the middle of a fight, which really sets it apart from the first game. Overall, the devs are seriously expanding the familiar formula. There are over 100 new enemies, 40 bosses, and a huge world with non-linear exploration. Hornet is much faster and more mobile than the Knight from the first game, and her abilities, like silk dashes, open up new paths for both exploration and combat. Basically, we're all waiting on the edge of our seats for this one. Lost Soul Aside. Next up is Lost Soul Aside, an action RPG with hack-and-slash elements. We find ourselves in a fantastical world where humanity is battling alien invaders from other dimensions. We play as Kaiser, an orphan from the slums, who sets out to rescue his kidnapped younger sister, Louise. Gameplay-wise, it looks like fast-paced, stylish combat in the vein of Devil May Cry. We fight hordes of enemies and bosses, chaining together attacks, dodges, and arena abilities that let us transform into weapons, awakening new powers. The atmosphere blends science fiction and fantasy. Think neon-lit cities, ancient ruins, living plains, and otherworldly dimensions. One thing that stands out a bit is that the devs chose Unreal Engine 4, not 5, and don't plan to switch. But honestly, that makes sense when you realize development started way back in 2014. Unreal Engine 5 simply didn't exist back then, and originally, it was just one guy working on it solo. Of course, there's a bigger team on it now. Alright, finally some news on which we haven't heard about in ages. It's a first-person action horror game with shooter elements, developed by a Russian team. They might not be based here, but you can definitely recognize the style. So, throws us into a surreal world where humanity faces an invasion of monsters spawned by a mysterious plague. We play as an unnamed survivor who wakes up in a ruined city, surrounded by fog and living nightmares. Our job is simple: survive. We do this by exploring semi-open locations, fighting enemies, and uncovering the secrets behind this plague. Gameplay promises hardcore horror and equally intense FPS shooting action. We blast enemies apart with shotguns, rifles, and other weapons. The atmosphere is super claustrophobic, featuring abandoned factories, infected slums, and literally living, pulsing walls, all built on Unreal Engine 5. The dev team, Cloud Team, are focusing on dynamism and fear. They're pretty experienced in the horror genre, so they're crafting non-linear locations for us, packed with secrets, traps, and alternate paths. And the enemies, ranging from small spider-like creatures to really big bosses, are designed to make you jump out of your skin constantly. Mortal Shell 2. After Mortal Shell was moderately successful, the developers decided to tackle its issues and release an improved version under the number 2. Gameplay-wise, you're getting that same Souls-like action RPG experience. We find ourselves in a ruined world, playing as a hardworking guy whose mission is to piece together the story setup, which is delivered the way we're used to in Souls-likes. Meaning, basically not at all. While wandering through a compact open world, from temple ruins to icy tombs, we fight enemies like giant armored snails and snake-like creatures. At least, that's what was in the trailer. The core feature of inhabiting the shells of fallen warriors from the first game is still here. Their flesh remains your weapon. This time though, the devs decided to add a bit more ranged combat and crank up the amount of violence happening per square foot. Let me tell you, it looks absolutely fantastic. So why not give this proper sequel to the first game a try? Polaris. Now, this is Polaris, a single-player, first-person survival game that literally evokes the long dark. Polaris drops us into a post-apocalyptic Arctic world where we play as a polar engineer. We wake up on the border between Norway and Russia after a nuclear explosion, stranded in an icy wasteland surrounded by melting glaciers and desolate emptiness. Our task is simply to survive these pretty harsh conditions, exploring a procedurally generated world while uncovering the mystery of why we might be the last person on Earth. Gameplay is all about survival, scavenging for resources, fighting wild animals, and not just animals, I'll tell you that secretly. We get around on skis and in a boat. The atmosphere is freezing cold and tense, with snowy forests, abandoned Soviet bunkers, and dynamic weather shifting from clear days to snowstorms, just like in the long dark. The coolest part? There's a lot of focus on skiing and customizing those skis, plus customizing the boat too. That boat serves as our mobile base. It really feels like we're alone against the elements, where every found bullet or scrap of food is a tiny victory. It's pretty neat. Bloodstained, the Scarlet engagement. The new Bloodstained. It's a 2.5D Metroidvania and action RPG rolled into one. We're in 15th century England, where an ethereal castle controlled by the demonic Lord Elias is terrorizing the lands with his demons. We play as two characters right from the start, Leonardo, a young warrior, and Alexander, the last knight surviving a failed expedition. Gameplay-wise, it's straight-up classic Metroidvania with a focus on exploration and combat. We fight demons, gather resources, and unlock abilities that let us access areas that were blocked off earlier, just like any other Metroidvania. The atmosphere is darkly gothic, with opulent halls, dark caves, and traps. It looks really beautiful. There's a cool feature called the body system. We directly control one hero while the other assists in battle, but we can switch between them at any time. The game strongly evokes Castlevania, and to me, that's a huge plus. ALZARA Radiant Echoes. ALZARA is a turn-based JRPG inspired by classics like Final Fantasy. We're thrown into the vibrant world of ALZARA. Yes, it's inspired by the Mediterranean, where 4 characters lead a resistance against the invading warrior nation of Vidra. You can expect charming graphics and gameplay true to classic turn-based JRPGs, battles, world exploration, puzzles, and more. The atmosphere is pretty bright and colorful. The battles have some neat features, too, like combining elements to create new attacks. Like, you take fire and air, and boom, that creates a lightning storm attack. This is helped by a swap system that lets you move heroes between the front and back lines during combat. Yeah, the battle lines are split, seems like a solid idea. Considering the game was funded on Kickstarter, the devs really seem to be pushing to get the absolute most out of what they have. Painkiller. Alright, this is Painkiller, a fresh remake of the classic shooter that throws us back into purgatory. We play as souls condemned for our sins, offered a chance at redemption by the voice of its creator. Our job? Stop the fallen angel Azazel, who's preparing to unleash demonic forces on Earth. Basically, it's a high-speed FPS shooter with co-op for up to 3 players. We jump, slide, and use a grappling hook to rip through enemies with iconic weapons and some new guns too. The atmosphere is dark and gothic, featuring detailed biomes ranging from hellish wastelands to ruined cathedrals, all running on Unreal Engine 5. A unique mechanic is the tarot card system that boosts your abilities. Plus, there's a character choice with passive perks affecting health, energy, or damage. To me, personally, it looks even more impressive than the new Doom. So trying this out is definitely worth it.